So welcome everybody to the first web event of Fearless into Tech. My name is Ellie and I am the founder of Fearless into Tech. We're about to start our panel discussion and we're really happy to have you here, all of you. I will also like to give a big shout out to my colleagues, Oksana, Oana, Claudia, and Isabel, who have been helping a lot to set this up super quickly. And they're going to be moderating in the chat and the questions. So please, if you have any questions, you can ask away and we will try to reserve some 15 minutes by the end of the session and answer as many questions as possible. And yeah, so let's start maybe with a quick presentation of each of our panelists. Maybe Lan, you want to go?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Lan. If you know a little bit of IT, I would like to introduce myself as local area network. It's a nerdy joke, not everybody can get it. I am originally from China and I was educated as an environmental engineer and I've been living and studying in Denmark for more than 9 years. Yeah, that's me. I'm based in Copenhagen as well.
Thank you, Lan. Ellen?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ellen Benheim. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Templify. I've been living in Denmark for 2 years, but previously lived and worked in Ireland before that. So yeah, my area is in security and tech.
Nice. Thank you and welcome, Ellen. Lila, do you want to continue?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Lila. I'm from Hungary and I've been in Denmark for about 8 years. And I'm educated in global nutrition and health. So it's something completely unrelated to tech, but now I would call myself a freelance web developer.
Amazing. Thank you, Lila. Welcome as well. Jess?
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. I'm originally from the UK, but I'm living in Berlin. I have, however, been to Denmark, so I have a little connection there. But hopefully once all of this COVID situation is changing, I can come up and meet some of you all in person. I'm a career changer. This is tech will be my third career. I've been in films, I've been in coffee, and at the moment I am a software engineer at Ecosia, the search engine that plants trees. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jess. Wonderful. I mean, from your introduction, we can see that you all have very, very different profiles. And you have obviously also taken very different paths into tech and found a different way to get into the sector. So one of the reasons why we really wanted to have you all at this panel is because we would really like you to share with us how this was for you. Like, how did this start? Where did it start? Did you have a sort of aha moment where you realized this is what I want to do? Yeah, I don't know. Everybody has different stories, so maybe who wants to start?
I can
Anyone?
start?
Yeah, sure.
If you want, cool. So I mean, I think since the very beginning, I've always been interested in tech and kind of tech savvy per se. So in the family, my dad is a network engineer and he's actually now part of a broadband company. He's a head of connectivity there. So engineering and networking has always been in the family, or let's say half the family. So one side is completely tech and then the other side is not. So we very much bore them with our talks. But I think, yeah, I've just always been really interested, getting kind of the latest gadgets, and also my dad tinkering with things and just seeing that, tech can open up new ways of doing things and really solving problems in a interesting and innovative way. So I think from very on, I was exposed and not had so much challenges against tech or thinking about that there was any challenges. And then I actually, in Ireland, so I'm from Ireland, I went to a Catholic all-girls school, and we didn't have any tech, like any tech classes or any, or computers were really old desktops. You know, it was archaic kind of things. But I remember in our 4th year, which is kind of like a transition year where people they can try out different things. The IBM, they actually came and invited our class to go and see their server rooms in a roadshow. So they invited us out. We got all the clearance. We looked at all their servers, their ports and networking setup and everything. And I just thought, wow, this is really, really cool. And just a different thing, not that I had been exposed to. And they were also talking to us in a way that, you know, there was no, you know, this was definitely an option for everyone, and especially because we're all girls. It was kind of our first exposure to something pretty cool. So I knew then, I think maybe that was the aha moment that, yeah, I definitely want to go into technology. And then it kind of escalated after that.
How old were you?
So I think I was 14 when they came through. And I just, because obviously my dad is a network engineer, so I knew a little bit about it. But when I actually went into the rooms and I saw the servers and just thinking like, this is where all the data is collected, this is where our web is built, was just, yeah, just a really cool thing to experience at an early age.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you studied as well, like something technical afterwards, like you continued your.
Yeah, so after that, you know, the key thing is that early exposure, you know, to not have any maybe doubt into technology. So I was in Ireland, we do a leaving cert, and we have to decide very early on what we want to do in university. And then after that, I was debating on doing computer science or maybe going more business, and I just wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I actually chose business information systems, which is a mixture of business and technology. Because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I definitely wanted to go into tech, but I wasn't sure that I want to go pure programming or coding. And they ended up actually, after my 2nd year, I did all technology modules and I didn't do any business modules. So in the end, I kind of made my own choice. But that course was really, really good because it just exposed you to so many different things. It was very broad, to networking, to security, to information security or systems analysts, and just things like that you get exposed to. So that definitely grounded my experience and my love for technology for that.
I find that really interesting because it happens that I also attended girls only school. At least the first part of the school, and like in the second part of school in high school, I studied in Ecuador, or I went to school in Ecuador, and we have these 6 years of basic school and 6 years of high school. And in high school, I had some courses in computer or IT. And I come back to this because you mentioned that this early exposure is an important factor. And I think you're right, but I also think that there are other factors that come on top of that. So it's something that we could maybe explore together. Because in my case, that early exposure didn't necessarily end up with me thinking this is great, but also I didn't have a dad who was a techie and who, who was motivating me from the other side. But yeah, how was it for you, Lan? Where did you go to school? How did it all start?
Yeah, when I was at the university, well, I didn't think much. I studied my bachelor in China, then I did a master in the Netherlands. So when I chose university, I think IT and the environment and biology were the 3 hot topics And I think probably I wanted to save the environment. The pollution was really bad, so that's why I went for it. But for my university, all the engineering degrees need to learn Visual Basic and C. So we learned. I took a course in Visual Basic, a little bit of C. And then for my master, I did a degree in so-called hydroinformatics. So it's about the computer simulation of the flow of water. It's very technical. And then you need to learn how to say programming. So I would say I learned programming, but it's very, how you call it? In a professional IT way, they call us spaghetti code. And as long as it works, so it's never tested, and you just copy paste from here to there, and yeah, you sometimes write a lot of useless loops. And yeah, so throughout the years, I've done a lot of this kind of scripting and computer, like writing the code for engineering purposes. But then I spent a lot of years in university. I did a PhD and I did postdocs, and I really wanted to pursue a career in the environmental field, which in the end I didn't succeed. And I saw all these years, all my friends left Denmark because if you want to pursue the career in academics, you need to change universities, you need to change countries, you need to change environment teams. And it's not that easy. And to tell the truth, being in the environmental world or being a biologist, it's quite difficult to find a job in Denmark as well. So I would say I was lucky that I know how to program, and I really packaged myself in a way that I'm very smart. So I was lucky that my first company hired me, and they were willing to train me, even though I don't have a IT background. And then I have never used this programming language this my first company used before. It's called C#. A lot of tech companies, it's quite popular in Denmark, C# and .NET. They were willing to train me. I started at 0, and yeah, that's how I hopped on board. I did quite a bit of self-learning, and now I'm like in another pure tech company, has nothing to do with the environment anymore. And I'm really glad I did a transfer.
So would you say that it was like for you, it was more like a transitioning into it without planning necessarily to become a programmer? You somehow landed there.
When I was at university, I have a lot of different tasks. One of them, small part, is programming, and then another part is more academic based. It's called modeling, and then writing reports, and then do a lot of data analysis. Data analysis is okay. I love programming, and I hate writing reports. So I thought, oh, I wish one day I could just sit there and write some program and test it, and it works, and it's out of my hand. I don't have to write reports or to be reviewed 2,000 times. And then my dream came true. I'm really happy for it.
That's so great. That's really, really nice, Lan. I know as a fact that, well, Jess, you already mentioned it in your introduction that you are a career changer, as I am. But yeah, so you definitely have a very interesting path. How did it start for you?
Yeah, I feel like my path's quite winding, and I didn't take a very direct route. So I had some exposure at school. I didn't go to an all-girls school, but I still very much felt the divide between boys and girls at school around technical topics. I particularly think about some of the engineering classes and the way they would be directed to young women was quite different, I felt, which kind of put me off. And I had a mix between a love of technology and the arts, which I still have, and I kind of went down the route of filmmaking. So that was, I studied that, and then that was the first industry I decided to try out. It's also very male dominated industry. And then when I moved to Germany, I decided I would look for something different. And I really resonate with what Lan said about feeling like you're kind of going in with nothing. But I would also disagree, because you took all of this wonderful knowledge and skill set from your studies and from the academic side, and I'm sure that you brought everything to your role in the first company using C#. And yeah, for me, that was the realization too of like, I got into coffee. I ended up working in a cafe, but this cafe is one of the most renowned specialty roasteries in Europe. It's called The Barn. I've been to Copenhagen through the coffee industry, so I know at least a few shops maybe have it. And getting into that and realizing how many skills I actually could take with me, I worked up the ranks from being a table cleaner to head of the production and roastery, but then kind of felt I wanted to change. Again, of course, age was a small factor in there, and that's when I started to look at tech. And I think I looked at it for many reasons, but realistically, one of the reasons was definitely around finance. And around being in a point in my life where I wanted to be able to earn enough money to be able to support myself, but also maybe to save. I think we're a generation that doesn't see as much prospects in terms of pensions or support in that way. So I felt like, this was an important aspect. Also lifestyle, standing on my feet all day in a cafe or pulling around 70-kilo bags of coffee probably was not something I wanted to do when I hit my 40s. So I decided that this, I wanted to go in that kind of direction. I did a lot of self-learning, but I'm very much community taught, I would say. I did some great programs, mainly the Rails Girls Summer of Code, which is just about to start up again this year. This is a 3-month scholarship where you get paid to code on an open source project. And they also pair you with mentors and coaches. You do it as a pair. And I had this thing where I didn't know anybody else that was doing tech at the time, like when I started. So I met someone through a meetup channel who became my partner, Artie. And obviously that's quite challenging in itself, just being like immersing yourself in a community and meeting people that as we're all doing here, have never met before. It can be quite daunting, but it was such a rewarding experience. And the support of the coaches, the support of my partner, Artie, the support of the community in Berlin is amazing. And that's why it makes me so excited to see all of these amazing women in Copenhagen and all the people attending, because, I think for me that I'm a big flag flyer for community, as you've heard me mention it a few times. I think that was a big driving factor. Had that not been there, I'm not sure if tech would have been the end of this part of the journey, to be honest.
That's super interesting, and I think you, Lila, can relate a lot with that, isn't it? Because your path into tech has something to do with communities as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's really interesting to hear all these different stories. And I also started somewhere really on a different path, because the end of high school, I was still really interested in so many things from environment, biology, but I really loved making videos. And so I ended up studying global nutrition and health, which I liked, but I still didn't have that feeling of like, yes, I want to do this and this and this. So when I finished that education, I was there with like, yay, I'm free now to do any projects I like, but then what am I gonna really do with my life? So that was the next 2 years were like quite hectic, or like a roller coaster ride, from like really exciting projects, volunteering, traveling, to being unmotivated and feeling hopeless. And my brothers, they are programmers, and they have been telling me for a long time, like, oh, I think you could like programming, maybe you would be good at it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to work in front of a computer all day inside, that's not for me. And one of these down phases, I found a website. There was a game telling that if you like this, then you would be into programming. And of course, I liked it. So I signed up for an online course where I learned HTML and CSS, and I went to Rails Girls meeting here in Copenhagen I was really inspired the whole community already, and I found some girls from Hack Your Future, and also had a friend who recommended Hack Your Future. This is a coding school that I applied for, and I was really lucky to get in. And so the next 7 months was really amazing, but really tough journey. Doing different projects every week, a lot of homework. It was full-time studying and work at the same time. But yeah, the community was so important for me too. It was just like a huge support in that, yes, we're in the right place, we can share our sadness, our success, we can support each other. Yeah.
Was it a mixed community as well, or was it a female-only community?
No, it was a mixed community.
That's super nice. But from all your stories, there you all have achieved a lot already, and you somehow managed to, either directly or indirectly land at where you are at the moment. And you, Jess and Lan and Ellen, you all have already also sort of nice careers and positions. And you, Lila, you're trying to establish yourself as a freelancer, so more like at the very start of your career. So it would be interesting to know what have been, in your opinion, the biggest challenges for you to land your first job or your first contract, in your case, Lila. What kind of factors do you think are important, both from your side as a candidate, but also from the side of the companies and the industry, the tech sector itself?
Firstly, I think it's a lot to work on myself to have the confidence to say, like, yes, I'm a web developer, I can do this and this, and not to be too critical over my own projects or my own work, because I tend to do that. And also another thing is that I find a bit challenging is putting out ourselves in social media, organizing ourselves as a brand, and I've been struggling with that a bit, but yeah, I know if I could learn coding, then I could learn that. So it's only the motivation that's missing.
And your first job, how have you landed your first contract?
Well, I did an internship for 2 months after finishing the Hack Your Future coding school. That was a good experience, but then maybe I didn't feel so related to the project and the whole topic. So then I stopped. It was also a startup, and they didn't have funding at the time. So then I quite enjoyed this free time of, okay, now I can focus on the actual things that I want to learn or what I want to do. And my boyfriend is starting up a company, so I'm making their website at the moment.
Super nice. That's super nice. How about you, Lan? Because you mentioned something about your company actually being I don't know how to say it, like that they offered you to train you. So and coming back to this question related to factors and criteria, do you think that would be a model that could be something that companies should do more? Do you think it is something that is common in Denmark, or not Denmark specific at all? What's your take on that?
I would say my journey is quite unique because my first company is an environmental consulting company. So it was very related to what I've been through. So my profile actually suited quite well all the consultants that they hired. And the company was full of PhDs, so they were not afraid of highly educated people. And then I don't think they have so many, how you say, professional IT trained programmers either. So they had a tradition of hiring engineers to train and to learn how to code. But I am right now working for a company that is purely IT based. So what happened is I worked 3 years in this environmental consulting company doing programming, and I learned that I learned how to do the backend programming, and then I also had a lucky chance to do a lot of the cloud journey. And so we learned how to do a lot of cloud infrastructure, and I learned really a lot of things during these 3 years. And after 3 years, when I started looking for a new career again, my current company, they didn't really look at my education much. They just did a code test and see how much I can read the code, how much I can do the coding. And they asked me if my knowledge of the cloud is what I needed, because my current company also does a lot of cloud infrastructures. And just because I knew things, and then they see potential in me, so they hired me again. So I would say that in the technical world, they don't really look at your educational background. As long as you can do the job, it's fine. This is my takeaway. And whether you learn it like through a community or through different projects, it's not the most important. It's just that as long as you can do things, it's most important.
Would you agree with that, Ellen? Jess, what has been your experience?
I mean, I think I would definitely agree with that's unique to the tech sector, not looking at your education, and also relying more on your, ability to actually to do the work that you say that you can do. I think the most important thing is, as anyone and as women applying for jobs, is to have that confidence to take that step and click the button to actually put your application through. Because a lot of the time we look at the requirements and they say, oh, we need C#, HTML, CSS. Oh, I don't know CSS, so I'm not going to apply. Like, there's so many things that we will limit ourselves to doing. And I think at the beginning, I was, before looking in Copenhagen, I was a little bit like that. And then I just had read a few articles saying, that this is the way that sometimes we are, and we overanalyze. So the more then I started to apply, the more positive response I got from employers that were willing to put me into interview, even though I was fresh out of college. So that was also a really nice confidence boost. That's the most important thing, is to for everyone to have that confidence in yourself, and that it will work out, and that it's not all what it says on paper. And it is very unique, and I think just in Templify, to the hiring process, that's a key thing, to keep away any of the gender bias that you might have, and just bring in the candidate and really doing a thorough assessment. It takes longer time, but in the tech industry, that's valuable time taken.
Yeah. And what about you, Jess? How did you land at Ecosia?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, firstly, I'm still waiting for someone to ask about my degree ever. None of the jobs I've had have ever looked at it, but I'm glad I've got it. I've still got the student debt to pay, so I guess they're asking. No, actually, really interestingly, a bit different in a way how I got into Ecosia. So after doing the internship with Rails, or this Rails Girls Summer of Code, it's somewhere between a internship and a scholarship, I would say. I was, of course, looking for a first company, and Ecosia was somewhere I had been through a meetup, through a community event. So I'd already had a little bit of an insight about who worked there, what the company was about, what technology they were working with. And then also I was kind of looking for a change in the kind of company I would work for, or the kind of people I would work with, coming out of the film industry, coming out of coffee industry. I was at a point where in my work experience or my work life, I had some like criterias of places that I would like to work, which I'm sure everyone does, but I'm also confident I'm not the only one that made compromises throughout my life on those criterias. But for me, this was a bit more important this time round. So I really wanted to look for a company that kind of aligned with some of my personal values. and Ecosia very much does that. So we're planting trees all around the world, including in areas where coffee is grown, and including on coffee farms. And I think that's amazing that tech can have that impact on like the real world. So it really drew me. They were looking for developers, but they were looking for like mid or senior level. So I applied. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was quite clear when I went into the meeting that I just didn't have the level that they were looking for. But I managed to kind of get my toe in the door and like win them over. So they created an internship position for me. So very similar to what you're saying, Lan, that company actually was prepared to take me on, even though I didn't have a lot of knowledge in the domain they were working in. They work with predominantly Golang, which is a language from Google. And I mean, I had done some. I've been going to Women Who Go, but like in all fairness, I didn't have a lot of knowledge around the language. So I really think I agree with what Ellen's saying, you gotta be a little bit, build up your own confidence and kind of push yourself out there. Not just looking at job boards, because if there's a company you really identify with, also most of them, I never see them putting junior engineer as a job application. And I think that's a whole topic in its own, and I can see people nodding, so I think everyone agrees. But I think this is even more reason why you've got to go out there and just kind of like keep knocking on the door, particularly if it's a company you really like. Yeah, so that was a 6-month internship with a view to hopefully hire me, and that is what happened. So that's been like really fantastic experience. But I think getting that first job, I think I was really lucky, because I know many people in my community here in Berlin that can spend a year, 2 years looking for that first position. And I think try not to be disheartened by that, because it's different for everybody. And part of it is how you package yourself. Part of it is luck. And that's, that's the truth of the matter.
I can totally relate to basically what all of you have said, and I know it from myself as well, this overanalyzing, this underestimating my skills, my quality, this being overly scared of trying things out, and also I have come to realize that the only person who is building up barriers is myself. Barriers for myself in my own mind. So part of the idea why Fearless into Tech came to be is that in a period of time when I was again trying to just make a reset and figure out what I wanted to do out of my life, and again wasn't sure about what kind of career path to follow, I started also out of necessity, and also in terms of economic security, in terms of sustainability. I was seeing my husband, who is a programmer, getting all these job offers on LinkedIn every week, like at least 4 or 5, and me on the other hand applying for 20 jobs a day or something, and it was so much disparity there, and I just felt sick about it. So I thought, okay, I have had it. I am gonna just have a look at this programming myself. And I signed up for a very brief sort of boot camp organized by a community here in Copenhagen called Women Who Code. And I went there. I didn't tell anyone a word that I was going there, just wanted to go and see. And then if I discovered that it was all, nothing, and then I didn't want to tell anyone that I had been there. So was super nervous. And although it was very quick, and at the end, I felt super frustrated because I didn't really understand what I did that afternoon. It also showed me that it was definitely by far not what I had expected all my life. Like all my life I'd been telling myself, oh, programming must be so difficult, and maths, and I'm so bad at maths, I suck at maths, that's sure something I can't do. So being there and seeing that it is actually language and communication packed in a different way was like, hey, I can do that. I should try that. So that's how the community came together, because of me looking for peers with the same background, meaning no background in tech, but also, you know, just struggling to find something, to find a way into tech. And from all my experiences, from different jobs that I have had, and from what I see now I also feel super fortunate, because I'm also working at Templify, and I transitioned into this sort of hybrid tech position recently. I was hired as a BDR, but only 2 months ago I started working as a sales engineer, which is yes, it's a hybrid between basically the sales position and a IT technical implementation position. And I'm learning everything from scratch, and it's super motivating. But what motivates me a lot is the fact that the company is basically ready to sort of invest in me and my development, and I've never had that before. So talking about factors and things, I think that yes, we do have to get better and do better at becoming more aware of our barriers, you know, mental barriers, do better at self-advertising, self-promoting, do better at not underestimating our skills and not overanalyzing too much. But I also think that we need to get better at opening a dialogue window, because although this is just like a female community, this Fearless into Tech, it's not because we don't want men there. It's just because there are too little women in the tech sector yet. But that doesn't mean that we don't need men. We need to get everybody on board. So in that sense, I would really like to know your insights or your ideas regarding what you think we could do better ourselves, but also what would you expect the sector to do better? How can we change things around this? How can we get more diversity, like leaf diversity?
Well, if I can jump in, I'd like to say congratulations, Helen, because your story is amazing, and you know, it's so awesome that you've started this community and everyone in it. Whatever part of the path you're on, you know, go for it. And I think community is really key to these things, because not every company is going to be so supportive, and not every company will be able to be so supportive all the time. So I think we can build these community links that kind of, you know, fill in the gaps where that's not possible. Like for me, I have a little group of developers who are all at a similar stage to me, and we'll share like kind of our fears and, Leah said earlier, like successes as well as failures. And that's so important, because a lot of the time you have imposter syndrome, which is this, you're holding yourself back and thinking, oh, am I allowed to be here? And I think hearing that from other people, you can kind of it's easier to give someone else that strength sometimes than it is to give it to yourself. So if you have a group and you give it to each other, you can pass it around. And I know it sounds a bit, I don't know, hippie, but like I really do think this is very powerful. And I think, you know, having women only spaces is also important. And there is a reason for it, a very important reason. As you mentioned, there aren't as many women or non-binary people in this industry. And that means often when you go to meetups or you're working in a company, you're the only person. And that can be really alienating, and it can be really hard to prosper in this kind of environment. So I think having a community group where you feel more comfortable and you're able to be open about what's going on with you is so important. It doesn't mean we have to block people out of groups, but if it's led by people from the minority, and if it's predominantly focused on the people from the minority, people from the majority will also benefit. So it isn't really just about like separating it off. It's about making sure that focus is aligned. And then if people want to join and be allies, that's great. And I would encourage, we can all be allies to different groups of people. So I think this is something we can also take forwards. Yeah.
Ellen, you recently took this very senior position as Chief Information Security Officer at Templify. And you are, I'm sure, I mean, I don't have the facts like, you know, white on black or something, but I am super sure that you must be one of the youngest CISOs in Europe. I'm super sure. And I'm also sure that you probably are in the minority being a woman. So what is your experience so far?
Yeah, I'm not going to say my age, but let's but I think, you know, the most important thing is to really early on just to have the confidence in your ability, and that your ability will take you to where you want to go. And it is okay to not know everything straight away. And it's also absolutely okay to ask for support and help and guidance of your peers. And that's when I came into Templify, that was what I was doing. I was researching self-learning on my own, but then also learning from the peers that were around me in Templify and from the community. So that was really important for me to actually take that help from other people, because a lot of the time we say, no, I have to do this all by myself. And if we want to get there quickly, that's definitely the wrong approach. So it was a lot of self learning, a lot of honestly just getting really stuck into the industry of security and learning quite quickly. And then having, as you said, Jessica, having those allies and recognizing them as allies, that they will support you, and to see that actually they want you to grow just as much as you yourself. So having those people that trust in you, and that's very much what, you know, they did for you also, Ellie, in BDR, into sales, into the engineering role, that they put that trust in you. And then once you get that trust, there's no stopping what you will do. So for me also taking the seniorship role, yes, it happened quite early on in my career, and I wasn't expecting it to be that quickly. But I knew that I wanted to do it, and I knew that I would be capable of it. And I said, as long as I have my support network around me and that mentorship that I had built up in Templify and then elsewhere, then it was okay for me to take that step. So I definitely reiterate that point, that again, it's your confidence and the support network that you build up.
Mm-hmm. So you don't see, or any of you, this question goes to all of you, but like, so you haven't really experienced yourself a sort of glass ceiling, or sort of, I would say discrimination is maybe too strong a word, but maybe biases, you know, among colleagues or in the company, or just not necessarily in the company, just it could be in your network altogether. Haven't you seen any kind of that? Like, have you always felt equal to your male counterparts?
Well, I think maybe discrimination is a strong word, but it is always a feeling that, like Jessica said, when you go into a room and it's you're the only woman there, it does feel very lonely and kind of alienating. So I think in that, because we are in a male-dominated area, that's a given that we have to, and it's not a nice given, it would be lovely to have a more equal setting. But it's something that we have had to accept going into this industry and really fighting for that. So I think that's why these talks and communities is really important, that we shout more so that we can get that equal setting. And it's something that's very important for you were saying, maybe what's a suggestion is that maybe in that hiring process and the retention of women is to make sure that gender bias is taken out. And there are tools and systems actually there to help you, because we all have some level of unconscious bias. We're actually looking to buy a tool called Develop Diverse, and it's from a female founder actually in Copenhagen, that looks through your job descriptions and takes out words that are kind of gender biased. So there's tools out there if we want to, and it's really like putting that trust and finding the company that will align with your interests to get the balance more.
Yeah. But the take us a little bit to this part of regarding diversity. And I think diversity as well as sustainability and, you know, gender equality and whatever there are, just like those big buzzwords that come up, yeah, sometimes, and they stay there for a while and keep being trendy or something. But I think there is a big difference between understanding diversity and or talking about diversity and implementing diversity. And diversity is, I think it's something very complex. So in my opinion, I don't think that it is enough to achieve an equal number of, let's say, female and male programmers in a company. First of all, because those are not the only genders, and second of all, because that doesn't reflect diversity necessarily. So you obviously have a super diverse background, not only regarding the career, but also, you know, your cultural backgrounds and everything also play a big role in this. So what would you think could companies do in order to really move from talking diversity to implementing diversity on a day-to-day basis?
Make it a priority. Make it a priority. Until, as Ellen said, until it is intentfully done, it will not happen, because it was not going to walk through the door. And I think there is a lot of focus around gender diversity, but I think it's almost used as the screen for saying, oh, we're doing this diversity thing, and it, unfortunately, that excludes a lot of people outright, which I think is incredibly unfair. So I think it has to be intentful, it has to be made a priority, it has to come from leadership. You need diverse leadership ideally, because if everyone sat in the decision-making seats is of one group, it's going to be very hard for that diversity to also equal inclusion in the company. So I think there's many things, but fortunately, there's also many changes that we can make. You know, there's also a lot of tools, as you mentioned. I've just written that one down because I didn't know it. But there are tools out there to support us, but it's a culture change, most of all.
Yeah.
I also want to mention that it's not just the companies itself, or we also need to talk about more cultural background. There's still a lot of misconception, because I was talking to my colleagues. There was one previous colleague. He was a professor at DTU for the IT department. He said with a class of 500 students, you're lucky to get 1 or 2 female students. The universities, or they just don't educate females. It's just the girls just don't think, or the society don't think programming is a girl thing. This is I think there are some of celebrities who are trying to change it, and I think there are also communities you can try to just, because I believe future is a world where everybody needs to know a little bit of at least programming or scripting. And if you don't know it, it will be a big disadvantage. It's another thing, of course, the company, because I don't know if you remember 2 years ago, there was this big discussion at Google. There was this engineer that wrote, yeah, because both Microsoft and Google, they were really trying to push the gender equality at least, but then a lot of the people, like in their back had, oh, they are hiring female just because they are female, not because they're good. So
Yeah.
So I mean, there is a lot of, how you say, cultural aspect that is not easy to implement, but we can try to more, how you say, devote ourselves into the communities, also to influence the culture, like to try to say, maybe coding is a cool thing, the girls can also do it.
Yeah, I can relate to this because I was also thinking that in high school or in school, I didn't even consider programming because, hey, that's for boys. And then now I'm just looking at myself like, whoa, because my perception of coding was that if you're doing programming, then you're, I don't know, do something with maths, you're calculating all the time. Well, no, there's like big diversity within tech of what you can do. It can become really creative too. And it would be so nice to have this like in the education, or for the people to know this from earlier.
Yeah. So we go back to the aspect of early exposure. And yeah, I totally agree. I think in order to early exposure works not only at the school level. I think it has to be, there needs to be a shift in the mentality, or this cultural shift, as you call it, Lan, because yes, the school is a good place to start, and these courses should be mandatory. Everybody should be doing this, and it should be implemented everywhere. But on the other hand, I think also parents and adults, whoever needs more education regarding this, because we still see all these crazy genderized marketing everywhere. It's still everywhere. It's the 21st century. We still keep seeing, adverts in pink for girls and blue for boys and all this silly stuff. And that's just an example. So even if we are living in a highly advanced society, and we have a lot of technology that we can access that we didn't have back in the 80s when I grew up, these kind of things haven't changed, and that personally scares me. That really scares me, because I'm super disappointed that we have come so far in terms of technology, but so little in terms of mentality. And that is something that really moves me, and yeah, lets me thinking a lot. And I really don't know what else can we do at an individual level. How more can we engage in order to be part of a cultural change?
Well, I wanted to add to that. I think representation is really important, because as you were mentioning, growing up, you're looking at things very much related to who's holding them in their hand. So I think having role models is really important. So that's why diversity also in that aspect is really important, that, young women of all ethnic backgrounds are able to look up and see someone that looks like them doing this, because then they're like, oh yeah, that's for me also, or maybe that's a possibility. And also on top of that, representation between what tech actually means, because for me, when I was at school, I thought tech was just about making video games or building a car that would drive around, and that didn't interest me. I wasn't really interested in that. But I don't know if everyone's familiar with Adafruit, which is an amazing company. It's all around Internet of Things. It's actually founded and ran by a woman, and they have loads of projects about how to make a light to go in your handbag. So, when you're out in the disco and you open your handbag up and you're looking for something, you can actually see in there. And I'm like, that's cool. I want to make that, you know. So I think representation of the people doing it and also the ideas that it's connected to would really help with that.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you say? Would you say that now that you have made it into the tech sector, would you say that you also have now better chances in terms, you know, of career, obviously, but economic security? Do you think that you are earning the same as your male peers? What do you think?
Well, I think definitely going into tech, I've been I have been, you know, reflecting in the last couple of weeks because of coronavirus, just how fortunate that we are, that we can continue to work and that we can continue to work actually really productively at home. So just on that aspect alone, the job security is just you know, tenfold there. So it's been really great to be able to do that and still also be able to, the technology that we have to still have the community like this online, and also to connect to our peers so that we can continue to work and also to communicate. So I think just even that aspect of alone that you get in tech is a really positive thing if people are thinking of going to that. Yeah, and of course, I have definitely experienced only positive things about career progression and promotion. So that's from my experience.
And you, Jess, what do you think?
Well, I'm actually earning a third more, or I started earning a third more than I earned in my job in coffee after working 5 years, and being one of the top pays on the payroll, not because I was getting paid poorly particularly, but because gastronomy isn't a very high paying industry. So the move into tech for me was pretty lucrative, and I've already had one pay rise since then as well. And also thinking, like Ellen just said, about the current situation, most of my ex-colleagues are being put on furlough or having headaches around how to pay rent because, you know, they won't be getting tips, which again, gastronomy is heavily subsidized on this kind of thing. So I think for sure that kind of benefit financially, I felt it. Also lifestyle wise, sometimes I'm kind of like, is this a real job? Like, not to downplay it, but like, you know, like I don't have to stand on my feet all day and carry things, and most of the time I don't even have to like speak with people, so you know, you don't have to do the servant smile, sometimes still. So I think that's also been a real benefit. I think, you know, it is really challenging to make this changeover. It's really challenging to make any changeover, and it's also really challenging if you haven't grown up with technology, or you maybe don't have access to a laptop or Wi-Fi or so forth. And I think there's a lot of people also forget that once they're in the industry, because once you're in, you're earning a pretty good wage. I think, like, you know, of course there's people not earning great money in tech, but the majority do earn good money in tech. And I think I heard this mentioned on a podcast on Go Time last week, and it really struck me of just remembering how hard it was to get in and how difficult it is, and the situation that people have coming up. My biggest struggle, or one of my struggles at the moment, is how I can continue my personal development, but also empower others to come and do the same, because I think that's something really important for me, is that I want to be able to support other people. Now, I'm not particularly at a level yet where I can make hiring decisions, for example, but I'm trying to, and this year for Rails Girls Summer of Code, I'm going to be a mentor. So like trying to, you know, a give back sounds like it's, you know, a give and take situation, and that's not what it's about, but like trying to support other people as much as possible is also very rewarding. So
yeah. And you, Lan, do you have any specific take on?
Yes, job security wise, yes, because I would say and when I was at university, my contract was always 3 to 5 months, and I didn't have a residency for Denmark permanent. So I was always worried whether I will be able to stay in Europe or not. And now, yeah, I think it's same. After I joined, changed my title to software engineer, I get offers from headhunts on LinkedIn quite often. So it really boosted my confidence.
Yeah.
Payroll-wise, I think it's not tech world alone. I think you cannot say female and male programmers or any other industry it's equal. And another thing is it's forbidden, at least in Danish culture, as far as I understand, to talk about how much you get paid. So I actually don't know people at my level, same seniority, how much they get paid. If I get paid more or less than them, because the negotiation was always one-to-one to the manager. And this was something cultural. I think culturally wise, females are just less, they have less guts to ask for raise. If we ask for raise, what if I get rejected? I think sometimes if you just have the guts to ask for a big raise, and I say, if you don't give me a raise, I find another job. This is not everybody is able to do that.
Yeah.
I would say.
I mean, I totally get you, because I actually did that at my last job. I was in tourism industry. I was doing the job of 3 people, and I asked for a salary raise, which was really not even 3% or something, you know. I just wanted really, it was like, seeing in hindsight, an insignificant raise that I asked. I could have asked for more, but I asked for it. Of course, I didn't get it. And of course, I kept doing the job of 3 people for I think 6 months longer. But then I said, okay, why should I? I mean, they are not even giving me a raise, and I'm just not having it anymore. And I just realized, but you know, I can also see that I have changed along the years because of the experiences that I have had before. So I think there is also something to consider there when we talk about community, when we talk about mentoring, when we talk about exchanging, that not everybody is at the same level, not only in terms of educational background, cultural background, all of that, but also in terms of experiences. So this kind of sensitivity is something that it's important to take into consideration, because maybe for somebody who has a lot of life experience, somehow it is easier to, you know, just take radical decisions like I did at some point finally. But it really took me so many years to get to that point of, you know, no submission anymore, sort of like, where I said, okay, I am not taking this anymore myself, and even if I don't have the security of what's gonna come next, I'm just gonna take the risk and do it. And of course, that's not something that everybody can do. And of course, that also means a lot of things in terms of economic and financial security. And so I think that we also need to think broader, because I think even in this small group that we're having right now, we're very privileged. We have all had access to education somehow. We have all had access to traveling. We all have relocated. We all live in different places. We have access to communities and technology. And I think a very, very, very important part of this diversity discussion is also looking further in order to see how to include those who actually don't have all of these things from the start, from the beginning. And I think that's the real challenge. Even at the community of Fearless into Tech, I know that Hack Your Future is the school in Copenhagen where Lila was educated as programmer. They do these really nice programs for disadvantaged people. There is this other school here called Ready School, and they do courses for refugees. And I don't know how more or what else we could do to include these communities too, you know, to and also in terms of companies especially, because I also think that for people who are not necessarily privileged, it can be even more challenging to present themselves and to apply for things. So I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, or would be really nice to have your opinions on this. But I also I really would like to have your opinions on what a community like Fearless into Tech could do still, as well, to, you know, include also more people who are not necessarily just like expats like most of us are, or yeah, or what can companies do as well to maybe take a risk and invest in people who have just started pursuing this path and yeah, are not necessarily privileged.
Well, I'd like to give a big shout out to all the companies and say, please just host meetups because you want to host them, not because you want to hire and like target the people as audiences. Like, you know, I think, I can't remember, the first meetup I ever went to was a Pie Ladies meetup. And when I got there, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like free education, a slice of pizza and a cola. And I get to learn all evening, like this, what's this? That has a big impact. That obviously also does only reach a certain amount of people, I've definitely noticed. So the groups that you're talking about, Ellie, I agree. Maybe you need to think about different ways to support them. I mean, at Ecosia, we have hosted once Ready School already, and I think companies could be a bit more proactive maybe in reaching out to these communities and just laying the question out there of like, how can we support, rather than thinking about it as a branding or hiring opportunity. I think, you know, Fearless into Tech, I haven't been to any of your events other than this one, but it sounds like what you're doing is amazing. So keep doing it. I think we all have to work together. There's no like one solution that's going to be able to really provide a space for everyone, and different people will need different approaches. So I think, you know, everyone that's here can think of their own way of what they can do. But that doesn't have to mean going out and creating a new community group. That can also be doing your job, being good at your job, and being a role model for others, and you know, making it work for you, because that's a lot. That's really tough. Also, you know, you don't have to do all this side stuff.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think for like, none of us are female founders. I think the nearest person to this would be you, Lila, of like, you know, having to build this brand and present yourself, and then, you know, who knows where it's going. She's maybe having a web company a few years down the line, or maybe sooner, and being able to then hire those sort of people into your company would be an idea I would think of.
Yeah, I would also think that those people who are coming out of these schools, then for sure for them, this is going to be an option. They know the people that go there, that they know they're good, they know how are they. So hopefully this is something. And also getting back to these meetups, for me it meant so much that in Rails Girl Copenhagen I met female programmers, maybe first time in my life. It was really motivating. And yeah, in contrast to another meetup where I arrived alone, but I was ready to get there. I didn't know too much about coding, but I only saw, I think, 2 women out of 60 people. So yeah, as Ellen was saying, this can be a bit intimidating, but yeah, groups where we can meet other people, hear their stories. I love that. It's always so inspiring to hear how other people did their thing, achieved.
And I think the important thing is not to get overwhelmed with the diversity challenge that we face, and that we can all play our part, even however small it may feel to us. Just coming on here and speaking to everyone here, you know, I've made 4 connections that are really great in my network already. So just putting yourself out there and putting, you know, having those 1 or 2 coffee talks, even with colleagues that are in your same workplace, maybe, to see how they're getting on. These are the kind of small things that we can do, at least to build up to the bigger picture. And also, of course, Fearless into Tech, keep going with that, and any mentorship that we can do. And I think it's very important in Tempify. We just hired another female engineer into our team today, and you know, I just took that 2 seconds to write her a Slack message or an instant message and just said, "Welcome to the team. Looking forward to working with you." And it's just those 1 or 2 small things that hopefully makes us feel more comfortable to continue in tech and not to be so scared about that majority shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're like actually almost coming to the, you know, to the last part of our event, of our chat. It's been amazing. And we wanted to leave the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes for questions. But before we open the forum for questions, Ada, I would like to ask you to give some recommendation to everybody in the Fearless into Tech community who is looking for a way to start their path into tech, maybe, you know, a super successful path that might end with an amazing job in the tech sector, but the mere fact that they are actually out there and joining and coming together and then taking the motivation to meet and learn on their own, because we're all self-learners, is a great thing. So sometimes keeping up this motivation can be hard, especially because they often ask if that is actually going to take them somewhere. If even without having a certification, if they would manage to succeed. So what can you tell the community in that aspect?
Maybe I can begin with.
Yes.
I mean, even though I think we're all programmers, but you don't have to be a programmer or work in the IT sector to know programming or scripting, especially scripting. Even if you work in an ordinary office work, you know a little bit of scripting to process data. Excel sheet will improve your life dramatically. Just something, Python or anything. I mean, you will see the improvement, and it's really very easy. 1 or 2 lines and you run it and something magic happens. Simple like that.
Thanks, Lan.
What I would suggest is that, first of all, fine, but they already met people. Like, if they're going to Fearless into Tech, it's already a good step. But yeah, to find other programmer people to learn together, to support each other, to pull each other if it's needed. And also that make projects on your learning path that you're interested in, that's some of your passion. For example, if it's plants, then make applications about plants, or if it's something else, then something else. That so you have the motivation to sit down, and even though it can be really struggling sometimes, you know what the outcome is gonna be like, or you have an idea. That's gonna help.
I love that, because one of the Pi ladies, she's just done a talk at PyCon, although it's been remote. She made a whole project around plants, about watering plants using Python. I think for me, I mean, such great points already, but I would add maybe like, don't let anyone else define this route for you. Everyone's at different paces. I know for me, I did this 100 days of code challenge on Twitter. And I've made some great friends with that, but at the same time, it's quite overwhelming, because you will see people that do it in 6 months or 3 months or a year, and that might not be the path for you. You may need longer. You may find a slightly different way in. You may enter not as a programmer and then swap over like you've done. So yeah, make those decisions for yourself, and don't let someone else tell you how it should be done.
Yeah, and just to add to that point, that not letting anyone tell you, and also not letting yourself tell you that that's not the way you want to go, and just having that confidence to go into something that is a little bit out of your comfort zone. And once we get into out of our comfort zone, that's where the magic happens, like Lan was saying. So you know, and also for me, I did do programming and I did it at the beginning, but I loved also a lot of other things in tech. So it isn't, there's so many things that once you just start, it really goes. So just to try it and just to go for it.
Thank you so much, everybody. I don't know if we have some questions from the community, from the participants. As far as I can see, nothing has really come up. So I don't know, maybe we touched on all points and all things that people were asking themselves. That's great. Ask away.
I was interested to ask you, Leila, like you've decided to go down the route of being freelance and kind of essentially having your own business, really, which, as you've already mentioned, has additional tasks such as branding and putting yourself out there, which I mean, I do a bit of, but I don't really need to for my job. So I'm really interested to hear maybe why you decided to go that route rather than look for a web development position inside a company.
Okay, just because I'm doing freelancing or want to go on the path of freelancing now, it doesn't mean that I don't want to be hired once as a web developer. So it's not excluded. But right now, I really enjoy the freedom of doing when I want to, where I want to. It doesn't provide security because like on the side I have to do a part-time job, so I know that I can cover my rent, but yeah, for me, freedom over everything. So for now, and then who knows what happens in like 2 months or a year.
Yeah, even tomorrow we can go out of our house with this corona thing, right?
It sounds like she's got a website to finish before then.
Yep. There is a question coming now. What is the advice if you want to start a software developer career without IT education? What would be the best path to start? Who wants to go?
I mean, I could jump in. I think there's no best path, just to be clear. It will very much depend on your personal situation, so financially, but also how you like to learn. So the path I took was a little bit more self-learning and self-directed, and I kind of felt really fine with that. Like that was what I personally wanted, but I know a lot of people also do boot camps because they prefer something a bit more structured. In Germany, you can get from the job agency some support to pay for boot camps. And I will also disclose I was receiving jobless money during some of the period while I was learning, and that was invaluable to being able to support myself financially. You may want to go to university and study, like that's also very valid. Like if you don't have that already and you have the opportunity to go do this path, it's something I also considered and looked into what kind of degree paths I could take. So I think there isn't a best path, but I think you have to think about what's going to work for you, and then also reassess it regularly. So I kind of tried to make sure I had enough money to finance myself for, you know, maybe 6 or 8 months, and keep reassessing it maybe every 2 months of like, well, how is this going? How likely am I to be able to receive employment through this? And And it's really nerve-wracking, I won't lie. Career changing in general is, you know, you feel like giving up everything.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, at the same time, I was really fortunate. Like my family are incredibly supportive. My partner's incredibly supportive. As you mentioned, I have a lot of privilege that has definitely eased this path for me. And if you don't have that available to you, then it's fine to recognize that and say, well, what things do I actually have? I don't know how it is in Denmark, but in Germany, for example, you can study, I think, at university, depending on your status, for free or very little. So that might be the better path for someone else.
Right. I have two more questions, but I'm gonna take the second of them because it's related to this one. Again, this do you feel that education is valued stronger than experience in terms of getting a job in tech? Maybe Lan or Ellen.
Education, no, really, because from I know at least several. I know many programmers. I know even one who didn't even finish high school. It just you just need to present a project. You learn something or you did a project. You show, hey, this is what I did. You want to hire me? This is really important. And I also, when we're thinking about, if you want to in the tech world, there's a lot of different roles. It's not just programming for website, front end or back end. There's a lot of designers.
Yeah.
Just they don't necessarily know how to program at all. And there are also different roles. And then many of my friends from the university, they end up being data scientists. The only thing they need to know is scripting. They don't even know any of the classical software programming languages. So if you really don't know anything, I think better just to search and see what you like, because there are really different things that you can do. And then the most important is that you can do the job. And then the best way to demonstrate it is just to see, I have this project on GitHub, go check it out.
Very much for me, from where I am at the moment, it was all about the experience that I had gained. So it was very simply starting off with a technical advisor role, and building up that knowledge of technical experience. And then from there, it brought me to an information security internship. And then from there, it passed on. So yes, my degree was a good base and a very good starting point. But when you're in that interview and you're speaking, it's all about the experience. That's the most important.
Yeah. And related to trends, what languages do you see as a perspective in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think is trending now or coming up?
Well, I would say Go and Python, because they're my favorite languages. I think Python because it's super versatile. So a lot of what Lan's saying of, like, you know, you could end up using it for modeling or scripting something that could range from some sort of biological simulation to maybe in video games. I know my partner uses it in video games, to web development, to data science. It's pretty much everywhere. Internet of Things. It's in space. So Python's really versatile. I think Go is a really interesting back-end language. If you feel like that's the area you're kind of focused, it's very opinionated. I feel like it's quite easy to get started with, and it has a super community behind it, as does Python. Which, yeah, I think with languages, it's also about the community. And then if you're in the web, JavaScript, it's everywhere.
Would you agree with that? Python and Go, or do you have any others?
I would say backend languages, you can start a war discussing with different people with different background. So let's leave it out there. But if what you're doing web design or website programming front end, it's for sure JavaScript. But then there are so many different frameworks. Even though I am pure backend, I have used so many Angular, and then there was also a very small, it's called Lead component from Google that was went down, and there was Vue, and there was everything. I mean, there are so many possibilities, and everybody has their own cup of tea. But Python is everything.
And make sure to know that if you're studying front end, then you have to know that it's changing so fast that you have to keep learning newer frameworks, newer things. So just be aware of that when choosing front end, back end, or languages.
Yeah, in that regard, I have a question that says, for those who have doubts about making the shift into the tech world, do you have any advice on how to figure out if that is the right path for them, or how to figure out what aspect of the tech world might be a good fit for them?
I like what Lila said about when she went to Rails Girls, and that she was kind of like, I don't really know what's going on here, but I kind of like it. So I think I'd say try it. And if it's, there's great things like Code Academy, where you can do it within the web browser. You don't have to download software or start trying to hack into your computer. Can save all that fun for later. And see, you know, if you end up doing it every night, or you end up doing a little bit every week, then probably it's a good idea to go further.
And the final question is from a female perspective. Where do you see the greatest opportunities for women in tech in the COVID crisis?
I think in leadership roles, but that's in general. That's in general. That doesn't necessarily need to be tech, but definitely it's from taking this leadership role. I have myself also actually just landed in the Corona situation in leadership, and I think as women, the opportunity that we have is that we have that the empathy and the people skills that to include others and to hear others, and we are very good listeners. Maybe I'm just overgeneralizing, but as leaders, it's also very important to not be. It's okay also to be not a dictator. It's a quiet leader. You can be an introvert and be a leader. So I think all those various aspects, actually, I think in this situation, these are the people that are coming out on top and really respected. So yeah, I think that's if we can do that, that's a good way.
Amazing. I'm so grateful to all of you in name of the entire Fearless into Tech community. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you, meeting you, and I wish you all, and we wish you all the best ahead. And yeah, we're super happy to have the chance to have you in our network and have your support. And it's been a real pleasure from our side to have this chat. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to everybody who joined tonight and stayed with us for the whole time. And I hope that we can do this another time as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.